Todd Golden confirmed that Florida plans to start Thomas Haugh at the 3 this year, calling him Corey Brewer-esque. Will this experiment lead Florida to back-to-back titles?
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, folks? Happy Tuesday. Welcome into this live edition of the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Andy Patton, joined today by the great Leif Tulane. We're so happy you're here with us to join at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. Want to remind you all that you can check out the show ad-free on Amazon Music. And of course, give a special shout out to those everyday listeners and those of you who are hanging out with us in the Locked On College Basketball Discord community. Leif and I got some fun stuff to cover today. We're going to do a trivia at the end of the show. I'm going to quiz Leif on some preseason projections. We'll talk about that to close out the show. We also discussed UCLA's very close to home non-conference schedule, why they are barely leaving the state of California, what it means for them, for the Big Ten, and for, frankly, college basketball overall. We're going to get to that in the second segment, but we are leading the show with an interview from Todd Golden from John Rothstein interviewing Todd Golden and talking about this team's starting lineup. It's a conversation that Leif and I have had already a couple of times this offseason, but we got confirmation via Todd Golden on John Rothstein's podcast that they are planning, barring any changes or surprises, they are planning to start their three of their four bigs from last year in the starting lineup. Obviously, Alex Condon and Rueben Chinyelu returning to the starting lineup for Florida, but then also Tommy Haugh, who came off the bench last year. I think he started like 3 or 4 games, but for the most part was off the bench. He's going to start next year, according to Golden, and he's going to start at the small forward position. That means you're going to have a 6'9" small forward, and you're going to have the 2 6'11" bigs in Condon and Chinyelu in the starting lineup. That's not to mention 2 7-footers coming off the bench, 7'1" Micah Handlogton, and it's almost misleading to call Olivier Rioux a 7-footer because he is 7'9" coming off the bench. So there is a ton of size for Florida this upcoming season. Leif, I know this is not the first time that we have talked about this, and I believe you anticipated that this was going to be the starting lineup as the 3 bigs alongside the 2 transfer portal guard additions in Boogie Fland and Xavion Lee. So I kind of want to rehash the conversation a little bit and hear your thoughts on how you think Tommy Haugh adjusting to the small forward position is going to work for Todd Golden and the Gators this year.
Well, I think it's a no-brainer he starts. I think he's their best player.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just start off hot with that. Like, no one is a bigger Thomas Haugh fan in all of college basketball than me. I think he should have been a first-round pick this past year if he wanted to be, and I think he could have been. But that's aside from the point. So I think last year when you had Walter Clayton Jr., you had Will Richard at the 3, and then you had 2 bigs, it makes more sense to play kind of a bigger front court. This year, you're playing an even bigger front court. But what's really going to happen is it's going to be the same as last year. He's going to close the game at the 4. Chinyelu is going to play 22, 24 minutes, and then someone's going to slot into what Will Richard's role was as a defensive stopper who hits open shots. And Tommy Haugh's going to be the 4. But he's their best player. So Corey Brewer, the comp in terms of impact, I don't mind. I think the way they do it is different. Granted, Corey Brewer, when they won their second, I was 6 years old. However, I've watched a ton of those Florida teams because I think those are some of the more underrated teams ever. And he was a defensive nightmare. He was the 7th pick of the NBA draft because he'd get out in transition, steal the ball, and go. Like, Haugh does it differently. But I think he's their best player. I think it's a no-brainer he starts. My questions for Florida are more about the backcourt. How good is Xavion Lee in the SEC play? How adeptly does Boogie Fland, who can score, no doubt about it, how adeptly does he score when balancing playing the way Florida wants to play? And so I have no doubts about their front court. I think Thomas Haugh is going to be all SEC. I'm not saying first team. I'm saying Florida's going to be one of the better teams in the SEC, and he's their best player. Therefore, he should be SEC for all SEC. I don't know what range, but that's my prediction.
I like it. I like Tommy Haugh a lot as well. I'm totally with you on him being a super impactful player for Florida. I'm curious how this is going to work for him adjustment wise to this role. I think you mentioned, I mean, obviously the Corey Brewer comp was what Todd Golden tossed out there, and certainly a player who was a 6'9" wing who scored a lot in transition, but also, was a decent 3-point shooter on a relatively low volume. In fact, if you look at Hauch's numbers last year and Brewer's numbers at Florida, they're actually, in terms of outside shooting and percentages, they're not that different. Granted, that was a different era where small forwards weren't expected to shoot as many threes as they are now. And Golden, when kind of talking about this plan with Rothstein, he made the Corey Brewer comp, but he also said that Tommy's been shooting the ball so well this offseason. That's part of the reason they feel confident with the ability to do that. Looking at the roster construction, looking at how Florida likes to play, to me, it feels like Hauch's ability to hit those, knock down those outside shots and be able to space the floor feels really critical. Now, obviously they have Condon, and Condon's somebody who can do that a little bit as well. But to me, it going from a 3-guard lineup where, like you mentioned, the Will Richard role of somebody who can play good defense and knock down open shots, like I think Hauch is capable of doing that. But I do wonder if, like, what does it look like in terms of having enough floor spacing with all the size that they're going to have in that lineup? And then I think the biggest question that I might have for Florida in terms of Hauch's new role is, what does he look like defensively guarding out on the perimeter? Is he going to be the one doing that? Are they going to have Condon do it? Is he capable? I mean, you're not just asking him to guard threes, you're asking him to guard SEC wings who are, by and large, very, very talented group of players. And I'm not discrediting Hauch's athleticism. He is a good athlete. He has a ton of length. He's a physical player, but can he hang defensively enough for this Florida team playing a different position next year?
So I'll answer that last bit, but here's a thought that I think will dispel some of the concerns about shooting. Mm-hmm. I think, one, he's going to be a better shooter because as the season progressed and he played more with the starting lineup and was the crucial member of the closing lineup, it was he, Clayton, Richard, Martin, and Condon, and that was the best lineup in basketball to close the season, bar none. And then what happened is he played the 4, so he gets more of the spacing, but it's less crucial than when he plays the 3. So I agree with that. But the one thing I would posit to you is Urban Klavjar going to be the Will Richard? And if so, then you have a fantastic shooter complementing the backcourt already, and you have size. So that's one thing I would posit to redirect the concern. That said, I think he'll shoot better. I think he'll shoot like 37% from 3 on higher volume because he's going to shoot smart shots. Like the best thing about him is he's got all the intangibles up the wazoo. Secondly, to answer that last bit, defensively, I think that his defense doesn't have to be locked down in the sense of, I got to stay right in front of him, because they can clean it up with Condon's a fantastic defender. He also can switch. Chinyelu's a bruising defender who can block shots in the interior. Handlockton's even more of a block shot threat. And if Ryu actually plays, try getting over 7-9. So I think they can funnel a little bit towards the interior, and he doesn't have to be as like slide your feet, stay with you the whole time. There can be more of a funnel into, a drop coverage that they'll play. I do think there are some teams that can expose that, but I think those will be few and far between.
So last question about this team then. Obviously, if you have Hauch starting at the 3, you have a ton of size in the front court. You alluded to it earlier. The concern is what was the biggest strength for this team last year by most people's. I know you were somebody who was very big on the front court even last year, but most people would say that Walter Clayton and Richard and Elijah Martin, and even to an extent Denzel Aberdeen, was this team's biggest strength in the backcourt. And now they're very talented. I don't think anybody's debating that Lee and Fland are exceptional players, but how do they fit in this system, and how do they fit alongside each other, I think, is a big question. They're both very ball dominant players at their previous stops. And Fland is a guy who, we didn't get to see him play in the SEC all that much just because of the timing of his injury. I don't think there's, a ton of debate that he was capable of playing at that level, but we haven't really seen him at that spot. And obviously Leif's coming over from the Ivy League, where you just don't have that high level of competition. So I feel pretty good about this front court. I feel pretty good about Hauch playing the 3, although I still want to see it, in practice. But you kind of alluded to it. It seems like the backcourt's more of the concern. Where are you at with these two guys and how they might fit in Golden's system for next year?
I'm concerned because this is a team that I think can win it again. I wouldn't put them as my betting favorite, but they have the pieces to win it again. But usually when you have the pieces to win it again, you have like ironclad guards.
Right.
You look at Purdue, they have Braden Smith. You look at the teams last year that were contenders. You had Walter Clayton Jr. You had other Milos Uzan, LJ Cryer. Like we can go on and on. I think that there's too many question marks in two senses. One, what position did Boogie Flan play at Arkansas when they were playing well? Well, he wasn't playing. It was he played point guard to begin with. He and DJ Wagner had this awkward fit. Janelle Davis was somehow supposed to be an All-American, didn't play well. And I'm not saying that's Boogie Flan's fault, and he was the most productive of those guys at the time. But there is a truth to the statement that when he was not playing, Arkansas played their best basketball. So I'm not saying he's not a winning player and he's not a talented scorer. He is, and I don't know about the winning player, but okay, that's a 6'2" guard that is going to be playing the 2 now. And then your point guard has played at Princeton the last couple of years. And that's a difficult thing for me to, say, wow, like he's going to be among the better SEC point guards. Like I don't feel that confidence about it. I feel more confident, honestly, in DJ Wagner, who I have lots of concerns about just because he's done it for years and years. And he's got a simplified role. So their backcourt concerns me greatly. I was never the biggest Denzel Aberdeen guy, but I would have preferred Denzel Aberdeen and Fland or Denzel Aberdeen and Lee, because I think there's a clear cut. He's a 2 guard. The other guys, there's a lot of lack of clarity. And Todd Golden's a guy who's pretty clear about roles. So if he's got the belief in his system, then I'm fine with it. He's had a lot of, smaller guards that have worked together, the Khalil Shabazz, the Jamari Bouyes, if you go to San Francisco. But that's a little different than the SEC. And I loved those guys. I know you're a WCC guy. Those guys were great. No slight whatsoever. However, if that backcourt that was fantastic went to the SEC, they'd then become like the 5th or 6th best backcourt, and that's a little bit different.
We're going to switch gears. Instead of talking SEC, we're going to move over to the Big Ten, talk Mick Cronin, because he made it very clear last year that he did not like the Big Ten travel schedule, all the road trips. So he decided to stay in California as much as he could possibly control this year. We're going to talk about UCLA's non-conference schedule, what it means for this team, coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, August 26th, today is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours today, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on the MVP race. I'm going with Joe Burrow for the Cincinnati Bengals, plus 600 according to FanDuel. I think he's going to have a big, big year. Not taking Cincinnati as my champion, though. You all see the Detroit hat on YouTube, so I'm going with the Lions at plus 1,000 to win the Super Bowl this year. Or if you want, folks, you can parlay your division winner dark horses, make some big bucks. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bet now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, folks, welcome back. Leif and I still here. We're going to talk UCLA here in a second. But first, we do have an important request for you all. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer some questions about our advertising. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes, or if you're on YouTube, you can scan that QR code. Thanks for helping us out. We really appreciate it. All right, Leif, let's talk some UCLA basketball here, because their non-conference slate was revealed officially on Monday, and I'm not shocked. UCLA has not typically put together hyper-competitive non-conference schedules in the past. They typically play a decent non-con. They'll have one or two kind of big games or big opponents. But this year in particular, especially coming off of last season where Mick Cronin was vocally critical of how much travel his team had to do, I am not sure what he was expecting as a school in LA joining a conference that primarily had teams based in the Midwest. I know that it was not his choice to join the Big Ten necessarily, although I'm sure he was quite happy about the windfall financially that came with it. But this year, UCLA releases their non-con, and they are traveling out of the state of California just once in the non-conference schedule. That is a trip to Gonzaga, not even to Gonzaga, that's a trip to Seattle to take on Gonzaga at the Climate Pledge Arena on December 13th. Outside of that, 8 of their 11 non-conference games are pure home games. 3 of them are neutral site games. One of them is the aforementioned Gonzaga game. One of them is a game against Arizona at the Intuit Dome, which is less than 15 miles from UCLA's campus. So while it is technically a neutral site game, it's kind of only neutral in name only. The other one is against Cal, and that game will be at the Chase Center. So that is a neutral site game that obviously is much closer to Cal's campus than it is to UCLA's campus. However, if I was a betting man, I think I would imagine there's going to be more UCLA fans at the Chase Center than there are Cal fans, which says a little bit more about Cal than anything else. But regardless, this is not a schedule that is really going to challenge UCLA all that much. Gonzaga, obviously a great team. Arizona, obviously a great team. Those are 2 really tough games. Of their home games, the only one that's a power conference team is Arizona State. They got Pepperdine, Sac State, Cal Poly, Riverside, Eastern Washington, like just not a particularly great group of games there. So, Leif, I guess my question to you, we're not surprised that Mick Cronin is staying close to home after all the travel that they're going to do in the Big Ten, but these kinds of schedules where you're not really challenging yourself, especially for it's not a super new look roster. They got a handful of key returners back, Bilodeau's back, Daly's back, Clark's back. They add in Donovan Dent. It feels like this is a year where you could really kind of go for it and challenge yourself in the non-conference to try to put yourself in a position to really be one of the top 5 teams in college hoops. And I'm frankly a little disappointed that UCLA seemed to take the easy way out with their non-conference schedule, especially with what looks like a very competitive roster.
Top 5 is bold. I mean, they got a great point guard, and that's what it takes to get into that conversation. But I don't know if I'm quite that high. I do think they're playing what I'd consider a lame, especially because UCLA is UCLA. Like,
Right.
Yeah, they're far from what they were with John Wooden, but it's not like they're that far off. They still won a championship 30 years ago. I mean, that's crazy to say that that's the most recent one with the O'Bannons. And in my lifetime, I've never seen UCLA win a championship. I've seen them make 2 Final Fours. I think that's it. That's pretty weird to think about. But what you think about in terms of UCLA is the prestige. They typically have big matchups. They can get people to come to Pauley. And I do think the travel has caused that, especially because you play a difficult road schedule because the Pac-12, some of the teams, my beloved Stanford Cardinal don't have a home fan base. Cal doesn't have a home. Like, they played a lot of teams that weren't particularly good. They basically only played a true rough venue, and they went and played at McHale. Now you go play. I'm not saying each year they play these guys, but you go to Mackey, you go to Champaign, you play all those teams. You go to the Breslin Center, and I think it's just a self-preservational tactic because if they end up, let's say, 12-8 in conference play, and then you're 9-2, you're in a great spot to be a 4 seed. And I think UCLA can be better than that even, but it's just a peculiar situation to see UCLA, a marquee brand in basketball. They're still a blue blood in my mind, not play a blue blood schedule or anything close to it.
And they bowed out of the Champions Classic, the CBS event, that was going to be in New York this year. That's traditionally it's been UCLA along with Michigan State and North Carolina and Kentucky, and now they bow out of that event and Louisville replaces them. And it's just like, again, it's almost like you're pushing the narrative that your team is no longer in that blue blood conversation when you're not willing to play in those kind of events. Like, playing in the Champions Classic was a badge of honor that UCLA decided they didn't want to do. And again, they never came out and directly said this, but it seems like they didn't want to do it because they didn't want to have to travel as much because of how much travel they're doing in the Big Ten. And you brought that up. And I think that, to me, is the big kind of key about this. It's a bit of a canary in a coal mine situation of like, and again, I think we're already kind of past that point of like, we are seeing these teams be less willing to play difficult non-conference schedules, be less willing to play in MTEs like Maui and the Battle for Atlantis and things like that, because they frankly do not have to. Because if you play in the Big Ten or in the Big 12 or in the SEC, and you're going to get 18 or 20 in the case of the Big Ten, you're going to get 20 conference games. And sure, some of them are not going to be quad 1 or quad 2. You're going to play your Rutgers and your Northwesterns and other teams like that. But most of your games are. And if those teams collectively decide to schedule easy non-conference slates and blow out a bunch of bad teams, that raises their net ranking. And then you go into conference play with a whole bunch of teams that have good net rankings. You all start playing each other. You all start racking up quad 1, quad 2 games. And it kind of boosts the perceived kind of value of those teams, or the perceived effectiveness of those teams in a lot of ways. And I understand, and I think that's what frustrates me about UCLA's schedule more than anything else, is that I do understand it. Like I talked about this on Locked On Zags recently, and I got commentary. People like, oh, you just don't get why they're doing it. Like, no, I do. That makes it worse in my mind, is I understand why UCLA is doing this. And I understand that they're, working within a system that rewards them for doing this. And I think that that's backwards. And I think that that's unfortunate that we don't get to see, and again, UCLA is playing Arizona in LA. They're playing Gonzaga in Seattle. Like it's not like they have no good games. There are non-conference schedules that are worse than UCLA's. There absolutely are. But for a team that was completely unwilling to leave the state, especially when Mick Cronin had his very famous quote last year where he said, quote, "We've seen the Statue of Liberty twice in the last 3 weeks," when he was complaining about their schedule. It's like, yeah, I'm sorry that you got to go play at Rutgers, and I'm sorry you got to go play these long distances. But again, this is what your program signed up for. This is what, UCLA chose to do. And they made the decision for football reasons, because football, you only travel once a week, but it impacts the other programs. And so I understand UCLA's decision to limit their travel and play an easier non-conference schedule. But I think collectively, it's not a good thing for college basketball. And I think that's what makes me disappointed in seeing this come out.
Well, yeah, but the thing that is so frustrating is that the greed that caused the conference realignment is causing us less good non-conference. Like that should be undeterred, right? Like you shouldn't think that, because of the football programs and this is the SEC, it's the Big 12, this is the Big 10, everything. But like UCLA was one of the best football programs in the Pac-12 for the last decade. But their basketball is the torchbearer at that specific school. And instead, okay, well, now they're not going to play Arizona in conference play. Now they're not going to play Oregon in conference play in the Pac-12. They'll still play them in the Big 10. And you're not going to play Stanford and all that. That's fine. However, you still expect that you're going to see them play Kentucky. You still expect them to play Ohio State and North Carolina in the CBS. You still expect the non-conference tournaments to be ones that are with marquee programs. And instead, it's preservational. And that drives me nuts as a fan of the sport.
Yep. I'm with you 100%. Again, UCLA, not the only team that's doing this by any stretch. We've criticized some Big 12 teams in the past for doing this, but it was an unfortunate development for what we consider a blue blood of the sport to see them kind of caving to the pressure here to not play these super competitive non-conference schedules. Leif and I, we're going to close out the show with some fun preseason projections that we pulled here from Bart Torvik's site, and I'm going to quiz Leif on this question here. We're going to see how he does. We got all that coming up here in just a second. But first, guys, you've probably heard of Viagra and Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is next-generation prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in about 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. And I love that it's completely online. Rugiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment directly to your door. So head to rugiet.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege to get 15% off today. That's rugiet.com/lockedoncollege using promo code lockedoncollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. All right, folks, we are closing out the show with some trivia. It's Tuesday trivia. That's how we're going to end the show here. Some fun stuff here. Isaac and I have been doing this for the last couple of weeks. Always fun to get Leif involved in this stuff as well. So Leif, it's a pretty simple question. Bart Torvik has been working on his preseason projections for this upcoming season and was recently revealed the highest scoring per game players projected for this upcoming season. And these are all high major players or at high major caliber programs. I will put it that way. So we're not looking for 20 point per game scorers at very small, low major schools. But I want to know, there is a list of 10 players who are projected to score 18 or more points per game this upcoming season. I'm going to throw it to you to guess who those 10 players are. And we'll go through after a while. We'll start giving you some hints on who some of these guys are, but it's a fun list of players here. So Leif, who are the projected top 10 points per game leaders, according to Bart Torvik, for this upcoming season?
Okay, so this is gonna be tough. I've got two. I feel very confident right off the bat. I'm gonna go with Trey Kaufman-Renn and Graham Ike.
You are 1 for 2. Surprisingly,
So
Trey Kaufman-Renn
didn't make it because their team's too stacked. Okay,
because their team is too stacked. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was the one that I feel pretty confident he should be on there, but I
think he'll probably be close to 18. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Graham Ike is projected at 20, which by the way I think is a little too high. Only because Gonzaga is going to spread the wealth around, but Graham Ike is a very good guess for this list as well.
So then I would go myself. I don't know if this is the way I should think of it, but I'd go Darren Peterson.
There is a freshman on here. It is not Darren Peterson.
So
that surprised me.
See that I think that's wrong. I think Darren Peterson's going to score over 20 a game.
Mm-hmm.
So Cam and AJ, I think both can. I would be more confident Cam scoring over 18, but I'll just say both in there.
Yeah, it's AJ. It's not Cam, but yeah,
that's what I assumed. But I would go. I'm more confident in Cam scoring higher. I'm more confident in AJ scoring higher than Cam.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like 2 of 5 right now. But I'm giving you my perspective of what I do. This is less about accuracy.
That's the fun part anyway, right?
I would even consider Mikel Brown. I'm just going to say that, but I don't expect him on this list.
No, there's no other freshman outside of Dibansa, but Mikel Brown is an interesting one. Chucky scored a lot at Louisville, so I could see Brown definitely getting up there.
Now let's think more logically. I gotta actually start thinking about how to do well in this. Let's see. I got to think about the SEC. I don't see anyone really. I could see Todd Pettiford. I don't know if I actually think he will. I don't think anyone Kentucky or Florida does. They're too well balanced. So I don't think anyone in the SEC is scoring over 18, which is crazy. I think someone surely will, but I can't think of who it would be. Then
I'll tell you this: there are 2 SEC players on this list. Neither are from schools that you just mentioned.
Yeah, see, I don't agree with the way it's being built out, though. So
there's one player on here that I think is it should from the SEC that should be on here. The other one is maybe more borderline.
That should be on here from the SEC. And one of the top teams, or is this from lower?
It's not a top team. That makes borderline tournament team.
Borderline tournament team. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah.
See, that's the interesting part is I think of it so differently. I think of the top teams and I think, okay, these guys could be all Americans.
I don't think this is a player that I would have come up with personally, but I agree he should be on this list. But you can look at other conferences too. There's a lot there's 1, 2, 3 from the Big Ten, 2 from the SEC, 1 from the Big 12, 1 from the ACC, 1 from the Big East. So it's really spread out.
So, okay, the Big East is an interesting one. I don't think that comes from UConn because they're too balanced. The St. John's, I think, would be interesting, but I also think they're too balanced. So then you go, and there's no Eric Dixon anymore, so that's tricky once more. And there's none of the guys from Creighton anymore. So I think that leads you to Providence. And that's where I feel pretty good about Providence. The thing is, I think Providence isn't going to score enough. See, I'm too analytical about this, but I would go with Providence as my answer there, and whoever they believe their leading scorer is going to be.
It is. I'm going to give this to you. It's Jason Edwards transferring from Vanderbilt to Providence.
I agree. I think he'll lead the team. I don't think he'll score 18 though.
Yeah, they have him at 19.3, which feels like a lot to me. Yeah.
So I'm pretty lost in terms of the Big Ten though, because I would go Trey Kaufman-Renn as my leading scorer in the entire conference.
Do you want teams? I can give you teams.
I'll go Bennett Sturts as a prediction.
I am stunned that Bennett Sturts is not on here. That to me feels wrong. He should be on here.
I actually agree with them. I wouldn't put him at 18. I think he'll be one of the best players in the entire conference, but I'm not going to put him at 18. But that was my one that I went to just because of usage rate.
Yeah. It's a player at Northwestern, a player at Ohio State, and a player at Wisconsin.
Okay. See, that's interesting to me, actually. The more I think about this, the less I agree. I would have never gotten these. So Ohio State, are they expecting like an enormous leap from returners? Because I just don't see it. I
think this guy. Well, let me see. This guy scored a good amount last year.
Are we going Mobley?
No, this guy scored just under 18 last year. Did you say? What did you say? Yeah, Bruce Thornton. Yeah.
I don't see it. I just
Yeah.
maybe I'm just lowballing them, but I think they have an egalitarian attack again. Like that's how they'll get better. And if they want to get better, they want less usage from Thornton, in my opinion.
I agreed.
And then you said Northwestern. Northwestern just lost Brooks Barnheiser, so it'll be Martinelli.
Yeah, it's Martinelli.
And that one's a good one. That one I have no qualms with, actually. I should have gotten that one.
Yeah.
He was the leading scorer in the Big Ten last year.
Yeah.
So
not exactly a household name, but yes, he is on here.
That's a good one. I have no qualms with that. The other ones I have plenty of issues with. So then we went to, who was the other team you said?
Wisconsin.
So they lose Tonje, who lit it up there. And let's see, who do they retain? It's going to be John Blackwell.
Yeah, it's John Blackwell. Yep.
Yeah, I don't think he scores 18.
Yeah, they were a really high scoring offensive team last year, and I think if they do that again, he could. But yeah, he feels borderline for that as well.
But he felt like someone who used Tonje's gravity and would attack the rack. Like he wasn't give him the ball, go get a basket guy. So I feel better about why I'm struggling now hearing the name. Like I can logic my way into getting him now, but I disagree with the list. Like I think Trey Kaufman-Renn and Bennett Sturts are better candidates. Martinelli will be there. Yeah. And then I agree with Edwards being the closest in the Big East. So that leaves the Big 12 still.
Just one player in the Big 12 and then one player in the ACC and then the two in the SEC.
One player and it's not Cam Boozer, it's not Mikael Brown. So we get Conwell maybe?
No, it's
not Williams.
Not from a good team. It's a Nick Martinelli type player for a not very good school.
Type player from the ACC. Bai Ndongo.
No, it is not.
Well, that's a shame because I think he could do it.
I do like him a lot. Yes.
I'm at a loss. I got no clue.
It's Marcus Burton.
Oh, okay, that's a good one.
Yeah. Again, not teams that are super relevant.
No, that's a fair one. I could have gotten that if I thought deeper. I was thinking bigs. You know who I think could score 18 a game though in the ACC, and they're not thinking about it? I think Louisville is going to put up crazy points. Yeah. I think Brown and Conwell can score 18.
Yeah, I think Conwell is going to score 18 a game. I feel, assuming he stays healthy, I think he can absolutely do that.
I wouldn't be shocked if Darian Williams puts up 18.
Yeah, me too. Me neither. Yeah.
So yeah, and then we got the Big 12. You said so Big 12, and it's not Darren Peterson, which is absurd to me. And is it Richie Saunders?
Nope.
Yeah, I actually don't hate that. They got a lot of mouths to feed. Oh, it's going to be Tunde Yesufu.
No more freshmen on the list.
Oh, that's true. You already said that. I see. This is why I disagree with this list vehemently. Yeah. These are the guys who are going to have the ball in their hands.
Yasufu is for sure 15. I wouldn't be surprised if he's close to 18 either. Yeah,
he's gonna have the ball. Like VJ was inefficient and scored 14 in a game.
Yeah,
and Keontae George scored 17 with Flagler and Cryer with him. Like Baylor's gonna let him rock.
Yeah, they are.
Let's see. So
you mentioned Darion Williams, so think about Darion Williams.
It's my boy. It's JT Toppin and Christian Anderson.
Yeah.
Okay, it's JT Toppin. I should have gotten one, no doubt. One's on me. Christian Anderson also is going to score 18 a game.
That would be Texas Tech would be real good if they got 18 plus out of both those guys.
I think they will. I think they could have 2 All-Americans. I'm not even saying that to support my cause, but if I'm going to make my own list to rival Bart Torvik. I like Bart Torvik. This is not a shot at Bart Torvik. I haven't looked at it. I don't use it very often. I'm typically more of a user of Ken Palm. But I'll say this. I feel like he's not factoring opportunity into this. Yeah. Like the projection is not factoring in usage rate at the way I would. Like if Darren Peterson's under 18, I would be flabbergasted.
Yeah, I think he's going to be over. I think that Peterson was just missed this cut. I think he was 17 and a half. So I think he's very close. But yeah, I think he's going to score closer to 20.
I'll say this. So I failed the assignment, but I'm going to give people something to watch. Darren Peterson, I think is going to lead the country in scoring.
Ooh, I like it. That's
he could be at 25 a game.
He's really, really good.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. So I'll say this. I'll make this for myself, and we can laugh at this later. I'll say my list of top 10 is going to have more that are in the top 10 than Bart Torvik's. All
right. Let's see if you're right. Let's also tell you the last two so that you have them. It's the SEC guys, Josh Hubbard from Mississippi State.
Oh, yeah. Hubbard's a good one. I could have gotten that one.
Yeah. And then Malik Dia, which is a bit of a surprise.
Never would have gotten that in a million years. I like
I like Malik Dia, and I know Isaac likes Malik Dia too, but I mean, this Ole Miss was so egalitarian last year. They had 6 guys averaging over 10 per game. Like the idea of Dia jumping all the way to 18, and I don't know. I don't know. I think Malik Dia will be their leading scorer, but I think it'll be more like 15 a game. That's kind of what I think.
I would never have gotten that. Hubbard should lead the SEC in scoring. That's an omission on my part. I was trying to think about the best teams.
Yeah. Hubbard is one that I wouldn't have gotten, even though I would have felt like, oh yeah, I should have gotten that afterwards, because I just don't think about Mississippi State all that much. Sorry, Coach Chance, just not a team that's on the radar all that much. Leif, love to hear your top 10 when maybe on another episode, and we can take a look at how close it ends up happening and who ends up being a little bit closer. But that is going to wrap it up for us today here on the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Folks, thank you so much for making the show your first listen or your first watch of the day. Isaac's going to be back with you all on Wednesday, talking some Purdue basketball. And then I got a fun show for you all on Thursday. And then Isaac and I will be back together again on Friday as we get closer and closer. Less than 10 weeks now until the start of the college basketball season. Folks, thank you so much for listening. Have a fantastic rest of your day. As always, we want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Popes. Cheers to the Mick Bruins. Talked a lot about them today. And until next time, peace out.